AITA for refusing to pay rent after my mom tripled it and let my brother move in? I have always been the practical one in my family. While my older brother Leo was busy chasing his dream of becoming a big-shot entrepreneur, I focused on climbing the corporate ladder, one steady rung at a time. That approach finally paid off when I landed a position at Crawford & Associates with a salary that made my old job feel like I was working for pocket change. The only drawback was the commute. The 2 hours there and 2 hours back were absolutely draining. Spending 4 hours a day stuck on buses and in freeway traffic was no way to live. After 2 weeks of that nightmare, I knew I had to find a place closer to the office. That Saturday, I went to my parents' house for our usual weekend family dinner. Mom was in the kitchen, stirring something that smelled incredible, while Dad sat in his favorite armchair reading the newspaper, the exact same scene as always. It felt like every other Saturday dinner we had had since I was a kid. Everything was familiar, everything on repeat. "How's the new job going, sweetheart?" Mom asked as she placed a steaming platter on the table. "It's actually going really well," I replied, helping her set the plates. "The only problem is the commute. I'm looking for a new place to rent closer to the office." That's when I saw my parents exchange one of those looks they've perfected over their 30-plus years of marriage. Mom wiped her hands on her apron and sat down. "Look, Amber," she said. "Maybe we have a solution for you. Do you remember Grandma Elena's apartment, the one I inherited? The tenants moved out last week, and it's literally a 5-minute walk from your new office." I almost dropped the fork I was holding. Of course, I remembered that apartment. I had spent countless weekends there when Grandma Elena was still with us. It was a cozy 2-bedroom place in a quiet, walkable neighborhood, with huge windows and a little balcony where Grandma grew her beloved petunias. "How much would the rent be?" I asked, trying not to sound too eager. Mom gave a number that made my eyes widen. It was about a third of the market average for that area. "Obviously, we'd give you a special family discount," she added with a smile. "I'll take it," I said immediately, without a second thought. The location was perfect and the price was unbeatable. "Settled then," Dad finally said, looking up from his newspaper. "Now, did you hear about your brother's latest success? He just landed 3 new corporate clients for his local delivery service. He's really making a name for himself in the logistics business." And just like that, the conversation shifted to their favorite topic, Leo's achievements. I sat there, moving food around my plate, nodding at the right moments while my parents showered praise on how their son was becoming a successful entrepreneur. It was always the same. Leo was the golden child, the risk-taker, the one who dared to dream big. I was just Amber. Moving day was surprisingly quick and almost drama-free. The real shock came when I walked into Grandma Elena's apartment holding the first box. The place was, let's just say, the previous tenants had not been kind to it. The walls were still covered in an ancient, peeling wallpaper. There were mysterious stains on the ceiling, and the only piece of furniture was a very old sofa that looked like it had survived a few battles. That night I called Mom, sitting cross-legged on that old sofa, the only available seat in the entire apartment. "Mom, would you mind if I did some renovations?" I asked. "Uh-huh." She sounded distracted, probably watching one of her cooking shows. "Sure, sweetheart, just don't go with anything too loud. You know how I feel about those trendy neon colors everyone is using now." I had to laugh. "Mom, have you ever seen me wear anything brighter than navy blue?" "Relax, I'm thinking more along the lines of earth tones and neutrals." That night, I dove into the internet, browsing through home decor blogs and Pinterest boards. I put together a whole inspiration board. Warm grays, soft beiges, and the occasional deep blue accent. Everything was understated but elegant, comfortable but well put together. I guess a lot like me. The following months turned into a blur of work and remodeling. I'd get home from the office, change into old clothes and get to work. First came tearing off the wallpaper. Then came the painting, which taught me that one more coat is almost never just one more coat. Furniture shopping became my new weekend hobby. I spent hours in stores testing sofas, measuring spaces and comparing prices. Little by little, I put my home together. A comfortable gray sectional sofa, perfect for movie nights. A solid wood dining table for 6. A soft rug that tied the whole space together. The transformation took 6 months of weekends and evenings, but finally it was done. Looking at my finished apartment, I felt a pride so strong it almost brought tears to my eyes. I had done that. When Mom came to see the final result, I was nervous. She walked through each room slowly, running her hand over the new kitchen countertops, examining the light fixtures I had chosen so carefully, studying the subtle pattern of the bedroom wallpaper. "Amber," she said finally, turning to face me, "this is stunning." I almost fell over. Mom wasn't exactly generous with compliments, especially not with me, but there she was, smiling for real, genuinely impressed. "You did all this by yourself?" she asked, gesturing at the living room. I nodded, trying not to look too smug. "Well, YouTube tutorials helped a lot." "It's beautiful," she said. And then she did something she hadn't done in years. She hugged me. A real hug, not one of those quick, obligatory ones she usually gives at family gatherings. 2 weeks later, I went to another family dinner, practically buzzing with excitement. I had been promoted at work. I was now a senior account manager with a nice pay raise and my own team to lead. I couldn't wait to share the news. "Mom, Dad," I said during a lull in the conversation, "I have good news. I got a promotion at work." Mom barely looked up from her plate. "That's great, honey." Then she turned to Dad, lowering her voice. "Did you hear from Leo today?" That was where the real dinner conversation began. It turned out my brother's delivery service was in trouble. A larger competitor, a national chain with a modern tracking app and lower prices, had moved into the area. Leo's clients were leaving faster than rats from a sinking ship. "We're going to help him," Dad announced, pushing his plate aside. "We've decided to take out a loan." I almost choked on my water. "A loan? Look, maybe this is actually an opportunity," I said. "If he can't compete with that bigger company, maybe it's time to try something else, start fresh. It might be better than throwing good money after bad." The silence that followed was brutal. Mom and Dad shot each other one of their looks, not the affectionate kind, but the one that said they were disappointed in me once again. "You don't understand business, Amber," Dad finally said in a cold tone. "You've always played it safe with your little office jobs. Your brother is an entrepreneur. He takes risks. Family always helps family," Mom added firmly. "That's what we do." I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it. What was the point? They had already made their decision. I could have told them I had discovered the cure for cancer, and they would still be more worried about Leo's delivery vans. The next 6 months were like watching a car crash in slow motion. Mom would call every now and then to give me updates, even though I never asked. The loan they took out allowed Leo to buy some new vans and lower his prices, but it wasn't enough. The competitor kept growing, taking more clients, pushing their app and their next-day delivery service. Then came the call I had been expecting from the very beginning. "Your brother's company filed for bankruptcy," Mom said, her voice tight with emotion. "He and Sophia have come to live with us temporarily, just until they get back on their feet." I gripped the phone tighter, thinking about my silent prediction at that dinner 6 months ago. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, because what else could I say? "I told you so?" "They're sleeping in your old room," Mom continued. "Sophia is having a really hard time. You know how she is about appearances." Yes, I knew exactly how my sister-in-law was. Sophia had always looked down her nose at my simple office job. She preferred to remind everyone at every family gathering that she was married to a CEO. I wondered how she was handling living with her in-laws now. That weekend, I drove to my parents' house, telling myself it was just another family dinner. But as soon as I walked through the door, I felt the tension in the air, so thick you could almost cut it. Leo was sprawled on the living room sofa, scrolling on his phone. He barely looked up when I walked in, letting out a grunt that might have been a hello. Sophia was sitting in the armchair like it was a throne, her designer handbag carefully placed at her feet. She shot me one of her typical looks, the kind that makes you feel like gum stuck to the bottom of her shoe. "Dinner's ready," Mom called, and we all went to the table. I should have known it was too much to ask for a peaceful meal. Leo started what sounded like a rehearsed speech about his business troubles before I had even picked up my fork. "I had everything under control," he insisted, gesturing with his knife. "The business was growing, we were expanding, and then those corporate vultures swooped in with their cutting-edge tech and deep pockets. They probably spend millions on advertising," Sophia added, pushing food around on her plate. How is a small business supposed to compete with that? Exactly. Leo slammed his hand on the table, making the glasses rattle. They're just bullies with bigger budgets. And don't even get me started on the morons at the bank who refuse to extend our line of credit. Complete idiots who wouldn't recognize a good business opportunity if it bit them in the face. Maybe, I interrupted, unable to help myself, maybe this is just how business works. Competition is part of the game. You have to plan for these possibilities when you start a company. The silence that followed was absolute. For pairs of eyes locked onto me, as if I had just suggested we all start eating rocks for breakfast. Plan, Leo spat. Easy to say from your cushy little office chair. What do you know about running a real business? I just think that. I started, but Dad's warning glare silenced me. I focused on my plate, pushing my peas into perfect rows. I can't keep living here much longer, Sophia said suddenly, her voice full of disgust. No offense, she added, not sounding sorry at all, but I need my own space. Leo reacted instantly like a puppet on strings. Mom, what about Grandma Elena's apartment? He blurted out. You still own it, right? My head snapped up. I live there, I said quickly, and I completely remodeled it. Oh yes, Mom nodded, suddenly perking up. Amber has done a wonderful job with the place. It looks gorgeous now. I saw the look that passed between Leo and Sophia. Swift, calculating, loaded with meaning. I felt a cold knot settle in my stomach, but I brushed the feeling aside. I was being paranoid. They wouldn't dare, would they? On Wednesday evening, I was walking home from work, thinking about the leftovers waiting for me in the fridge and the Netflix series I was binging. When I reached my floor, I froze. Voices were coming from my apartment, familiar voices. I opened the door and found Mom, Leo, and Sophia standing in my living room, acting like they owned the place. Sophia was running her hand over the new curtains I had hung the month before. Mom, I tried to keep my voice steady. What's going on? You guys could have called to let me know you were coming. Mom waved her hand dismissively. She didn't even look at me. Don't be ridiculous, Amber. This is my apartment. I don't need permission to come over. My mouth went dry. Something in her tone set off every alarm bell in my head. I watched as Sophia continued her tour of the apartment, inspecting everything like a real estate agent doing an appraisal. She ran her hand over the new kitchen counter that I had personally installed. She peeked into the freshly painted bathroom and nodded, approving of the built-in shelves I had added in the living room. Finally, she sat on the sofa, the old one I had kept from before the renovation, and smiled with the look of a cat that had gotten the cream. It's perfect. We can move in next week. The world seemed to tilt sideways. Excuse me, I said. I live here. This is my home. I remodeled it. I'm the one paying. I decide who lives here. Mom cut me off, her voice sharp. And all the work I did? I pointed at the walls I had painted, the floors I had polished, the hours and hours of effort I had poured into this place. I transformed this apartment. Oh yes. Mom's smile turned calculating. And precisely because you've improved the apartment so much, its market value has gone up quite a bit. If you want to stay, the new rent will be triple what you're paying now. I felt the blood drain from my face as everything clicked into place. They had planned this. Mom knew perfectly well that I couldn't afford triple the rent. My promotion was good, but not that good. You're trying to force me out, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Mom shrugged without bothering to deny it. If you can't pay the new rent, you better start looking for another place. I'll give you a few weeks, a month at most, to leave. Without waiting for my answer, they headed for the door. Sophia already had her phone in her hand, probably arranging the move. Leo didn't say a single word the entire time. He didn't need to. Mom stopped in the doorway without turning around. A few weeks, a month at most, she repeated and slammed the door shut. I stood in the middle of the living room I had painted, decorated, and turned into a home, feeling like the walls were closing in on me. The warmth of pride I had felt when showing Mom the remodel months ago turned to ash. While they were probably expecting me to spend the night crying into my pillow, I already had my phone in hand, scrolling through rental listings. Before midnight, I found the perfect place. A modern one-bedroom apartment just 2 blocks from my office. The rent was higher than what I was paying Mom, but I didn't care. It was worth it. On Thursday morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. By 9 a.m., I had gone to see the new apartment. By 10 a.m., I had signed the lease and paid the deposit. The landlord, a straightforward woman named Janet, raised an eyebrow when I asked if I could move in right away. Luckily, the apartment was empty and she wanted it rented as soon as possible, so she had no problem saying yes. Next stop, a moving company. I found one that offered same-day moves. I didn't mind paying the rush fee. While I waited for them to arrive, I walked through my apartment, Mom's apartment, with sticky notes, tagging everything I had bought with my own money. When the movers arrived at 2 p.m., I stood in the living room directing traffic like an orchestra conductor. The gray sofa is mine, the dining table and chairs too. All the kitchen appliances, except the stove and the fridge, are mine. I installed those shelves. They go too. Item by item, my things went into the truck. The coffee maker I treated myself to after my promotion, the memory foam mattress I bought during a big end-of-year sale, the TV mount I installed myself after watching 3 YouTube tutorials. Everything I had bought to turn that place into a home went into boxes and straight onto the truck. When they finished, the apartment looked almost exactly like the day I moved in. Empty walls, bare floors, and that old sofa sitting all alone in the middle of the living room like a captain sinking with his ship. I gave it one last look, remembering all the weekends I spent painting those walls, all the nights I invested in making the place look nice. Then I locked up, put the keys in an envelope, and slipped it under the door of my parents' house on the way to my new apartment. I spent that night setting up my new home, arranging the furniture until everything felt right. It wasn't until the next morning that the chaos broke loose. The calls started at 7 a.m. Mom, Leo, Sophia. Mom again, Leo again. I watched my phone vibrate on my new kitchen counter, taking slow sips of my freshly brewed coffee from my relocated coffee maker. After the 6th call, I answered. What were you thinking? Mom's voice exploded over the speaker. The apartment is completely empty. Your brother and Sophia have nowhere to sleep except that old sofa. You had no right to take all that furniture. I took another sip of coffee, feeling surprisingly calm. Actually, I had every right, I replied. I bought everything with my own money. I have the receipts if you want to see them. I left what was already there. You know, that sofa you were so happy to let me use. There was a moment of silence. Then Mom said something that would have made Grandma Elena wash her mouth out with soap. The call ended with a sharp click. My phone buzzed again in less than half an hour, this time with text message notifications. It seemed Leo and Sophia took turns flooding my chat. Vindictive witch, Sophia wrote. How dare you take everything? You're just jealous because Leo is a real entrepreneur, and you're just a little office worker. Leo's messages were no better. Selfish piece of trash. You've always been jealous of my success. Now you want to punish us just because we're going through a rough patch. Real classy, little sister, real classy. The messages kept coming, each one more venomous than the last. According to my dear brother and his wife, I was greedy, heartless, vindictive, petty, cruel, selfish, and my personal favorite, a soulless bureaucrat who doesn't know what family loyalty is, even if it bit her in the face. I read each message once and then closed the app without replying. Instead of getting dragged into their drama, I focused on settling into my new life. I arranged my furniture, decorated the walls, and started building a different routine. A month went by with no contact from my family. I would love to say that I didn't think about them, but that would be a lie. Every now and then I found myself wondering how they were doing, if they had managed to furnish the apartment, if Mom was still making her famous lasagna on Sundays. But I pushed those thoughts away every time they popped up. They had made their choice. Exactly a month after the move, my phone lit up with Mom's number. I almost didn't answer, but a mix of curiosity and foolish hope made me pick up. The rent payment didn't go through, she said without any introduction, her voice accusatory. I couldn't help myself. I laughed. Of course it didn't go through. I don't live there anymore. Remember you kicked me out. That's not the point, Mom snapped. We expect you to keep making the payments. The laughter froze in my throat. Excuse me. We're going through a really hard time, Amber, she said. We're still paying off the loan we took out for Leo's business, and he can't afford rent right now. The family needs your help. Let me see if I've got this straight, I said slowly, gripping the phone tighter. You kicked me out of the apartment so Leo and Sophia could move in, and now you want me to keep paying rent for a place I no longer live in, just so they can stay for free. Family helps family, Mom said, as if that explained everything. You know we're struggling with the loan installments and that Leo is still trying to get back on his feet. That phrase again. How many times had I heard it over the years? Always when they were asking for something, never when I needed support. Something inside me finally broke. Is that really what family does? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. Family throws one child out on the street to make room for another. Family takes someone's home away and then demands they keep paying for it. You're exaggerating. No, Mom, this time I'm not exaggerating. I'm being realistic for the first time in my life. I'm seeing things as they are. That whole family helps family thing, right? Well, guess what? I'm family too. Or at least I was supposed to be. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. When Mom spoke again, her voice sounded cold. I am very disappointed in you, Amber. I let out a short laugh. How funny. I was just about to tell you the exact same thing. I hung up the phone and immediately blocked her. Then, one after another, I blocked Dad's number, Leo's and Sophia's. I opened every messaging app on my phone and blocked them there too. To top it off, I logged into each of my social media accounts and blocked them completely. It felt like cutting off my own arm, but somehow I could finally breathe. Weeks went by, then months. Through family gossip, mainly from my cousin Rachel, who had always been decent to me, I found out what was going on. Apparently, Leo had come up with another brilliant business idea. Something about artisanal pet food delivery, or maybe organic meal prep subscription boxes. Rachel wasn't too sure. My parents had started visiting different relatives, asking for money so he could start over. Most of them had enough common sense to say no. Only Uncle Mitch, famous for charging interest rates that would make a loan shark blush, offered to help. Not even my parents were desperate enough to accept that kind of help. The last thing I heard was that they were thinking about taking out another loan to finance Leo's new venture. Rachel told me this one Saturday while we were having coffee, watching me carefully to see how I would react. What do you think about that? She asked. I stirred my latte thinking. 6 months ago I would have been sick with worry. 3 months ago I would have been furious. Not my circus, not my monkeys, I said. And I was surprised to realize I actually meant it. Rachel smiled. You look different, she commented. Happier. I thought about my new apartment decorated exactly the way I wanted, about my recent promotion, the one I celebrated with my team and not my family, about the cooking classes I had started taking on weekends. Something I always wanted to do but never had the time for while I was remodeling the old apartment. I am, I replied. I really am. That night I sat on my sofa, in my apartment with a glass of wine, thinking about everything that had happened. Mom's words echoed in my head one more time. Family helps family. They were right about one thing. Family really should help each other. But somewhere along the way, they forgot that help has to go both ways, that love should be unconditional, and that family means supporting each other's growth, not fueling the same old failures. I took another sip of wine and smiled. I had much better things to do than try to fix people who didn't want to change. Much better, without a doubt. Comment. Thinking about this story, it's clear that one of the hardest lessons in life is learning where your responsibility ends and someone else's begins. Setting boundaries, especially with those we love, isn't an act of cruelty. It is an act of profound self-respect. We often think kindness means endless giving, but sometimes the kindest thing you can do is be kind to yourself first. Your peace is a precious thing, and it is absolutely worth protecting. Letting go of a situation that consistently drains you isn't failure. It is making space for your own healing and growth. Never let anyone's definition of family or loyalty diminish your own value. Remember that you deserve to be in environments where you are celebrated, not just tolerated. I truly hope this reminds you to choose your own well-being. Always. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.